Episode 4 of Coach of Strahd, the Curse of Strahd campaign that my group's now going through. And man, oh man, it was an interesting session. They met Strahd, and they went into the village of Barovia. They helped the village of Barovia and met Strahd again at the very end. It was kind of crazy. So I'm going to give the whole rundown of what happened in the campaign, what I thought was going to happen, some things that I would have done differently. There was definitely a few things and some notes I made right after, and I'm going to go break down with you guys here about some things that I could have done better. I'm like, man, I could have done better. You know, when you leave the session, you're like, that moment should have been a little bit bigger of a moment, and I messed up something. I'm going to share that with you guys. Overall, though, really love the session. It was definitely, they've been going through it. The first 3 sessions have been in the death house and going through it. Lots of different combats, lots of different stuff. A big, huge combat that took a whole chunk of that last session 3. So as far as combat goes, there was no combat during this session, but I'm totally fine with that, especially with how much I had down in that death house and stuff. So they just got out of the death house. They stepped into the I was going to say clean air, but it's all dark and gloomy here. And there was a little picnic basket sitting there and a looming carriage as a tall, dark figure walked over, clapping towards them, and they met Strahd. So, how I role-played Strahd in this way was very confident and very adventurers welcome now. And he was very happy to see them and impressed that they were here and they made it through the house. And that's kind of the angle that I'm going at with Strahd in this whole situation is his goal is he wants to have people come into this land. First of all, he wants more people here in general, so the soul situation can grow. All of this is top secret information that players have no idea about. And one of his goals, as far as with adventures here, is to basically raise strong adventurers to push and challenge him. He's basically he wants them to survive and be pushed to the limits and get stronger so that they can fight him and he can become stronger. Because you can't get stronger if you pick on a bunch of weaklings. And so he wants them to become stronger to challenge him so he can become stronger. And that's the whole concept. And there's other reasons why, and we can maybe get into that once that kind of starts to come into the plot, but there's a little bit of sneak peek there. Also with Strahd's goals towards Irina, I think have always been with the rules as written or in the book in the module. It says he's just going to try and take her, and he's already bitten her twice, and if he bites her a third time, she becomes a zombie. But what would stop him from doing that? He's all powerful in this situation. So Strahd is trying to manipulate and trick Irina into falling for him or into coming to him for safety. He is trying to burn the world down around her and leave her no option but to finally succumb to his courting and his attempt at seducing her, right? In the many different ways in which he's tried to seduce her over the years in this whole looping cycle of stuff happening. Because I don't want to get into, I guess, the lore too much, but this has happened before. All the souls in this little pocket area are trapped here and they recycle. So whenever somebody dies, their soul doesn't pass on. It stays and it lingers. And whenever a child's born, it's almost like this weird form of reincarnation where the spirits go back into the bodies of the newly born children and no new souls are born here. So people get recycled every so often, right? So every couple centuries people will come back through, but then they don't know that they're themselves, but they are themselves. So Irina is the formerly reincarnated version of Curse of Strahd's main love interest, of Strahd von Zorovich's love interest from back when he was alive, before he was a vampire. His main love interest, Tatiana, Irina is her reincarnation coming back, and it's happened multiple times, and he's tried to seduce her multiple times. It keeps failing every time, and this is now his next shot at it. So anyway, they kind of got to meet him outside the house. None of that happened. I just gave you a little bit of the big picture, overarching thing here. And Strahd's just really feeling out the group. He's wanting to weed out any weakness. There's one NPC, Pascal, that's been with the group, and he is the weak link, right? And I was waiting to use him for an example, whether it be an example of killing him inside the house or an example at some point. So he's going to die. He's for sure going to die. And this is the moment right now. So when they come out of the group, in fact, let me even go to the books here, right? So if I go to my campaign, Durst Manor, all the way at the bottom here, was the final situation with Strahd. Had all this whole thing planned out. If Walter was still alive, if Walter's not alive, purple is the read aloud text for Strahd. Green is the text for myself, or for the flavor text for the settings and stuff. So here was the choice. Here was the choice that was going to be made. I had said, who's the leader of the group? Who's the leader of the group? And then come, let's talk. So he's going to come talk. He asks who's the weakest group. Which one of you is the weakest group? I will eliminate them and this solve your problem. And then the leader was chosen, nominated to be Finian the cleric. Finian the halfling cleric. They said, oh, they're the leader. And then Finian said, no, I'm not going to say which one's the weakest for you to go kill. I'm not going to say that. He's like, well, then you're the weak one. And then he he turns to go towards the rest of the group. Finian tries to grab him, and he gets backhanded down to the ground, gets knocked down on the ground for a second. As Strahd walks up to the rest of the group and straight up murders Pascal. I had a whole scene right here of just the death scene of how that whole thing went, and he just absolutely grabs Pascal's face and just smashed it into the side of the house. Killed him. Drank the blood in this very pooled up the blood and had it levitate and form an orb around him as he just drank it in. As shows of power, all that kind of stuff that I'm trying to hammer in with all this Strahd, them meeting Strahd, and then he shifts back into so now. The game was, as far as this goes, as far as the if he said, I asked who the leader was. It was Finian, and if I talked to Finian, if she had said a person, he was going to go kill that person, and that was going to be it, and then that'd be done. And if he chose a player, he was going to go and kill that player. Now, there was going to be a possibility of them trying to get back to the town. There would have been a whole thing for it to see if they could have saved that person. He was going to mortally wound them to the point where they probably would have died unless the skill challenge went well and they could have had a chance to try and save whoever it was. But I did not think that any of my players would have said another player to kill. Cross your fingers. And I thought he might have said Pascal would be the weakest one, but he's like, no, I'm not saying anyone. So the punishment for that was he's just going to straight up murder Pascal. And now he's like, now I will find out who the weakest one is. So now he gets to turn to the rest of the group, and they all had to perform for him in some way and show a display of strength in some way. And this was a highlight of the session for me. Is I got to sit back as Strahd, and they got to show off what they do that's good to try and impress Strahd. And I even told them, I said, you don't want to roll the lowest. And they're like, okay. So the two circus brothers got together and they did some knife trick throwing show. Went off great and went off amazingly. They rolled pretty high. And then the barbarian wants to smash something. She went and smashed something. Real smash. She rolled real high. Awesome. And then it was down to the last two religious people, the cleric and the paladin. I was really interested how this thing goes. And I was going to also feel out how Strahd felt about holy people in his land, right? And then... I just thought of another moment that I could have. Anyway, I'll get to that. I was going to have it be based on the rolls, of how well the rolls went. So the Finian went and they were going to do some sort of flame around the paladin. The paladin was going to try and swing the flame sword. And it was really cool because in the house, 2 sessions before, the paladin swung the flame sword through a ghost, and it turned to before that they were able to access divine smite. This cool natural 20 moment led to a flame sword come out, and this was this faith of the paladin. He had this faith to try and summon that fire again. And then in this moment they rolled, and then I even gave him advantage. The paladin got advantage on the roll, and rolled a 1 and a 2. Rolled a 1 and a 2 with guidance and all this other stuff, but whatever. And it was at advantage, so technically I took the 2, but still, that's not going to fly for this whole Strahd moment. So I was like, all right, the dice are telling me a story. Strahd is pissed. I didn't know how Strahd was going to take it. I was like, oh, flames, I thought he was going to be like a challenge, almost exciting to Strahd. Like, oh yes, this is kind of where, all right, some people can maybe come and push me in some way. This is exciting, like some good competition. But then the dice, I was like, okay, no, he's pissed. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like that. That was my interpretation of it. So as soon as I described this, and as soon as they start summoning the flames, the two religious people, the rest of the group sees that darkness start to come around Strahd, and he's like this, almost like this cold anger of you take the light into this land. He was upset, and he mutters something to himself, and then in a blur, like an anime style whoosh blur, he catches and grabs the flame that's coming up from Finian, kind of swirling the flames up around to try and get towards the Pug's sword to go up and light the sword on fire. Before it can happen, he grabs Pug's forearm, breaks it, and pulls the arm and completely dislocates Pug's shoulder and completely sorry, I should have said this before. I asked Pug to roll a d20, which is on my lingering injuries table, which is right here. So lingering injuries table, boom. There's the lingering injuries table if you want to check that out. But 1, it was a break a leg or an arm, etc. So, or amputate, like lose or break, if you see in parentheses there, because I fully believe that you shouldn't just dismember your player's limbs, even though it got rolled. It got rolled. I should have dismembered the arm, but in my table, I don't have rip off arm. I have lose or break, right? Because I wanted to get. So I got up at the table. I whispered over to the player. I was like, "Do you want me to rip off your arm or break your arm? You get to choose option one or option two." And they're like, option two. Why would I ever choose option one? I was like, I'm just giving you an option. Because some players might want to dive into that and be like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, let's go for it and see what happens, right? So they wanted to go with broken arm, so I sat back down and I described what happened, and then snap, boom, boom, pow. You take the light and you keep it away from this land. Like he was basically we started shit talking about this land is darkness and the darkness is mine. And you just try and bring the light in here and I will snuff it out, like that whole situation. And then shoves it down to the ground. And then in this moment, also, if you can see here, I had some the threats, the death scene of who I was going to kill. And I was like, all right, I think that this is going to be Strahd's pissed off enough. He's going to kill her. But him. It's a girl that's playing a male character, so I'm going to get that flipped up. But I go over to, I was like, all right, this is, I think the paladin's going to be the one that take another blow in this way. And then as the paladin hits the ground, he goes, Belanos's light will shine here no matter, like, Belanos's light is always with us. And, like, starts talking shit to Strahd. And I was like, oh my God. And that ticked on a cue of Strahd's, a character trait that I think they might have figured out a little bit now, is he likes whenever they have that fighting spirit in like that rise up and keep pushing through. That's who he wants. He wants Pug to rise up and get stronger from this. And he's like, oh, like he definitely like responded to that in a big way and was like, and like I immediately stopped with any sort of thing I was going to do to kill or wound heavily, etc. And the basket that'll have gifts inside, and like there's like some healing stuff in the basket. Make sure you patch up your arm, etc. And then turns around and walks and starts to walk away. And yeah, that was the little introductory there. Welcome to the castle, and you shifted back into the jovial thing about like, oh, like you should make yourselves at home here, survive. You just come by my manor sometime. My door's always open. Like he's just being super accommodating and welcoming to these adventures in his land after just killing one of the NPC friends and then breaking and dislocating another one of their arms as he leaves, right? Julius the Ferret died also. For the record, Julius the Ferret died. There was a moment where Julius the Ferret, she, at the very beginning of the session, I forgot to say this, at the very beginning of the session, the player has a ferret, and at the very end of last session, she got beat up a bunch of times, and I was like, we're going to have to roll death saves for your ferret. She rolls a success, rolls a failure, rolls a success, rolls a natural 1. And the ferret dies. So that was a big moment. And then Strahd, she shows the ferret to Strahd. I was like, oh my gosh, Strahd has bestial capabilities, and he has like the power of undeath and all this other kind of stuff. He could totally bring the ferret back to life. So she hands him the ferret. He looks at the ferret. She doesn't really give him much instructions or anything with it. So he like looks at the ferret. He like breathes towards the ferret. The ferret comes back to life. She's like, oh my God. And then I bit the ferret's head off and threw it down on the ground. There's a couple of moments of different ways I wanted to go with it, but any moment that was good, any sort of thought I had that would have brought her ferret back as this like undead ferret, I thought about bringing the undead ferret back as like a spy, and then the ferret would have been a spy for Strahd, because Strahd has beast spies of wolves and rats and all these things all in the land. So I was gonna have him come back as a spy, but then I was like, man, this player in the last campaign had a cat as a pet, and it turned out that there was this whole thing with it. I was like, I don't really want to go through that with this pet. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not going to do that to her, to turn her pet into a spy that works against her. No. So I just killed it, right? I honored and respected the dice and the natural 1 of the death saving throw. I just wanted to respect that because it just happened like towards the beginning of the session. So I was like, nope, I'm going to kill it. So I killed the pet. So that was a funny moment. And then now they got to meet Strahd. They lick their wounds. They go into town. So now to fast forward a little bit, is because that was the big moment. That was the big moment of the session. Really, was just that whole thing with Strahd. They meet the old woman. The old woman has pies. The old woman, spoiler alert, she's a hag, and she has pies made of children's bones. And They have some crazy wild side effects, and the players just take up the pies. They just eat the pies like crazy, and all 5 of them get pies. All 5 of them eat pies. They're all loving the pies. And I'm like, oh my god, they're going to be addicted to these pies. This is going to be a problem. So the whole party is going to be addicted to these pies. They buy a whole bunch of pies, and then the lady directs them down to the inn. They get to the inn. They meet Ismark. Ismark is the main NPC quest giver of this entire town, and he tells them all the stuff that's going on. There's the sickness in the town where there's like basically a zombie sickness. There's people getting kidnapped, which is foreshadowing for some other stuff that I'm not going to get into this episode. It'll probably get into next week's episode. There's some kidnapping going on, and then he wants to get his sister the heck out of here, right? So they go, and they had this brilliant moment where in fact, let me even show you the town. I made a new town map. Oh, this isn't even the town. Village of Barovia. So I made a new map. This is the base game map, but I added in some extra stuff. I added in E8, E7, E9, E10, all of these locations for extra little side stuff because the base module doesn't have all these extra little side things. There's a kidnapping happened here. There was a wells up here. So they go out and they're like, all right, well, like, what is there a well? And like they ask around at the one of the shopkeepers they just talked with, and they're like, yeah, the well's up on the hill back there. So then they completely bypassed all of the little quest hooks to try and get there, and they go straight to the well. In this brilliant moment of they went straight to the well, figured out that the well's poisoned with all these zombies that are in the well, and this stuff coming from the death house. There's like two streams coming in. One of them's blocked and the other one's open. And that has been switched to where there's like this black nasty water and like zombie juice basically that's poisoning the well of all these villagers, and the other well has been blocked. They switched that out, cleared it out, and now they within one day cleared the zombie problem. So that was very well done on their part, and they figured out they speed ran that the zombie well problem, came back down here and then investigated this house. Here's the problem when they investigated the house. When they investigated the house, they didn't roll really that well, and no one really did. And I don't want to give away too much because the situation here of what's happening is, and this is again not in the module, so this is the extra thing I'm adding on there, is this kidnapping is, spoiler alert, the Father Donovich. Father Donovich, the church, the head of the church. His son is named Doru, who went to go attack Strahd, got turned into a vampire spawn, and sent back to the village. So Doru, his son, is now a vampire spawn, and he's trapped in his basement. So Doru's father, the head of the church, is kidnapping people and feeding him to his son to keep him alive. And it's this dark, twisted thing. And he keeps kidnapping people. And this is the most recent person he kidnapped. So there's a whole bunch of little clues of a scuffle and some blood and some this and that and all this kind of stuff. And the tracks led about right here. And then it stopped and they couldn't really see where else they went. And that's about as many clues as I wanted to give. So then they go shopping. They have a little shopping episode. The village merchant here. I added a bunch of magic items to his shop, but they're all thousands of gold, and no one can afford it and everything. But the twist though is Ismark has a in with them in every quest that they accomplish. He's going to get them one magic item. These are very simple magic items. Nothing crazy. Nothing that's going to be able to break the game whatsoever. But that's going to be a fun little thing for them to get a little reward, because I want to give them some magic items, and there hasn't really been much in the way of being able to give them that. Most of the stuff they've got is kind of cursed and a little bit of magic, but nothing. So this will be a fun thing. If they wanted to invest in the town, they're going to get some magic items. So basically the shop had unpurchasable magic items unless they did some quests for Ismark and helped them out, and so they're going to get anywhere from 1 to 3 simple magic items, and then but with this whole kidnapping thing, I didn't want to give away too much of the secrets and stuff. I wanted to hint and imply whatever's going on there with this kidnapping thing and leave it be a question mark. So then I redirected them to the Burgermaster Mansion. They met Irina, and the whole group loves Irina. The whole group is like attracted to Irina. I described her as a very, very attractive NPC, which that's the whole point, that she is. That's Strahd's main love interest, etc. So, yep. And Finian, who's the halfling cleric who's bisexual, is very interested, and the bard of the group, of course, is interested, and that's going to be an interesting little dynamic there. Then what happened? Okay, so all of that, they meet Irina, and then they need to bury her father and the burgomaster and all that kind of stuff. That's one of the things that Irina needs before she's able to leave town and get out of there like Ismark wants her to get the heck out of the village of Barovia. They have to bury her father, which leads us to the church. So they get the father and they go take her to the church, and this is all kind of happening really fast, but I didn't want to really slow things down. The pace was fine. They were going, and I didn't want the town to drag too much. So then we went straight to the church. They got to the church. They met the Father Donovich. He helped set up the whole ceremony, and then we went into the second meeting of Strahd. This was where I feel like I could have really hit it a little bit harder. There was they start the ceremony in the church, and I had this whole scene set up where Strahd was going to come and like not interrupt the funeral, but just make an appearance at the funeral. This is Irina's father that died, and he's making an appearance here. He shows his power. He brings in these wolves that surround, and the mist surrounds all of them. He like talks and gives them a speech. Her brother shouts up, and he shoots him down. None of the other group says anything, as they're all kind of just like watching on, and like he offers his hand out, says, I can protect you. I can help you. You'll be safe with me. And she turns him down and everything. He says, fine. And then she stands her ground confidently, which touches on one of his old triggers of like respect, and is like, no, all right, I'm going to keep burning the ground down around you until you come to me. And then he turns around with his dignity and leaves, and everybody gone. So I think the one thing I wish I would have done there is interacting with the party a little bit. I gave them openings. They had openings to say something, and no one did. So maybe they're just like, a little paralyzed in front of Strahd, or maybe that was a good thing there. I don't know. But I definitely probably could have said something to the holy people and be like, you keep that light out, like some sort of threat like that. But then I didn't. So there was a moment there I wish I don't know what really I would have done, but I feel like I could have had a little bit of window there where I poke at them to say something or try and get something out of them. But maybe this is the way that the moment should have been, is this like appearance of Strahd. They don't say anything, almost respecting his power in that way, and then he leaves, right? And then that's kind of where we ended the session of the March of the Damned. They stay there, the midnight fell, and they kind of see this big procession of all these ghosts and stuff leading up towards Castle Ravenloft, which is a big little scene there, showing all of the hundreds and hundreds of people that have tried to kill Strahd and failed. And this is a full graveyard awakening to try and they march up towards the Castle Ravenloft, up in the looming off in the distance. And that's where we ended the session, with this big looming situation of that. Now they're going to see if they can. Oh, also, I guess the one part I forgot to say is Father Donovich has bruises and wraps on his hands, and he's limping and stuff. So there's definitely some clues pointing to him being the one that's involved with some of these things. I don't know if they're going to put that together. We'll see. If they don't, they'll leave. However many things they solve, they're going to get one magic item for, based on what things they're going to be able to get from the little... from Ismark rewarding them for it. Get Irina the heck out of there, and then who knows where they're going next. So I got some stuff to prep up now, because they really did run this town through pretty quickly, and especially with the well. I don't know what they're all going to be doing in here, and then we'll see where it goes from here. But that is the session. It was a really started and ended with Strahd, and the whole vibe thing there, exploring around a city and trying to solve some problems and stuff, a little bit of shopping. So interesting to see where it goes from there. But I definitely do want to, I'm making notes in my head of like, all right, so I want to have some sort of spicy something moment happen. There's a zombie fight that I think I'm going to have happen in the streets. Things like this, I want to make sure to add spice to a town that's not just going to be like, all right, we're just walking around. I want to have some sort of something go down. So I'm probably going to throw a zombie fight at them in the middle of the town, and just have some sort of, it's fun. I probably won't even put a battle map down. It's just gonna be like a fun little street skirmish thing, just to get them to get their hands dirty a little bit, and then get them back out there to make sure, because I always try and keep a pulse check of how much combat's going on, what's going to happen on, and everything like that. So there's tons of exploration, tons of social going on, and we're a little low on the combat pillar, which is their favorite pillar, and I'm going to keep a pulse check on that as we keep going forward. But there's the big picture. Also, props to one of my players, Lou, the Barbarian, was super sick. Hasn't been able to, like, she was super sick. Like, the player was sick at the table, which we made a joke that her character had 4 levels of exhaustion, so they were kind of synced up there. But those got cleared. They took rests, and they're fine now. But props to her for trucking through that and the whole thing. You can also see the footage, the live footage of all all of this is on my Patreon. Every single week I post these videos, the live gameplay footage on my Patreon, so you can see the footage of here and get kind of a feel for some of the stuff I'm saying, the different changes I might make or do or whatever. It's because I might even go back and like kind of watch my own film, and maybe I'll make a video on the main channel about how I would do something differently or whatever. So anyway, that's the breakdown. That's the lowdown. We'll see what happens next time. Stay creative. Think outside the box. Peace.